the track.
Peace. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, it's your boy vicslanghope. I got another video for y'all about Rikers Island, right? And the title of this one is, just because you sitting on the dick does not mean you tough. I mean, that shit sounded so crazy. Just because you sit on the dick does not mean you soft. That's what I meant to say. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of... Now, anyway, before I even get into the video, I want to appreciate my subscribers, my followers, my supporters, the people who've been rocking with me from the beginning, or even if you just came along, I appreciate you. I appreciate y'all tuning in and sharing and liking the content. So anyway, let's get back into the story, right? I don't know how they're doing things in adolescence today. Well, I don't even think that there's adolescence, if I'm not mistaken, because they raised the age. So I think a lot of the young boys are going to juvenile now. At least I knew that when I was there working, that they would send, like, you know, you could be 18 now in juvenile, and, you know, I think of 19. I think it's up to 21. I'm not so sure. But yeah, I think a lot of things probably have changed. But when I was in adolescence, you know, and I spoke about this in other videos, and we talk about how, like, there was a ranking system, right? It was the day room dummies, right? It was usually they would sit on the dick. They called this table the dick or the iron horse, right? Which is kind of crazy. Like, could you like even imagine like somebody telling you, yo, go sit on the dick? Like, that shit just sounds crazy, right? But it's just wild, right? So, you know, and then they have like the team table, and then they have the rocking table. And, you know, y'all probably heard about these things before. But again, I think these things are similar to society, right? Like, a lot of times people get locked up and they want to get acclimated in jail, and they want to be down, and they want to, and most people are followers. Most people are followers of some sort. Most people are going to be, and most people also want to be a part of something. So a lot of times dudes go to jail, especially being that young. You're already being misinfluenced in the streets. But like, a lot of times dudes go to jail, and they just, a lot of men too, not even just young kids, right? But like, a lot of men go to jail and they get with the program. They get real acclimated. They start doing a lot of the weird stuff that goes on in jail. A lot of times I didn't even want to be around people. Like, I would always be in my cell. I hated jail. I hated being around these dudes that I don't know, I'm not cool with. Some of the dudes used to stink. Some of them just was corny. They just had like weird behavior. Like, some of them dudes, they wouldn't be my friends in the street. So I just didn't even want to be around them, right? So like, while people was in the day room watching TV or playing around or doing stupid shit, like, I would be in my cell reading, or I would just be in there like, damn, like, I hated it, you know? So I didn't want to really be around nobody. I used to come out from time to time, play Skelly and you know, maybe cook and whatever. But anyway, the whole point of the story is this. It's just like, jail and society is not that different. It's still a ranking system, right? In the hood and in jail. And when you go in there and somebody, they have this perception that the moment you sit on this table that they call the dick, it's like it's open season for you, right? It's like, I guess they look at it as in, if you're willing to go sit at the table that they call the dick, and you don't feel no type of way when they tell you like, oh, that's where you could sit at, or you know, that's where there's space for you. Like, it's almost like they say like, well, if you don't got a problem like sitting at the table that's called the dick, then he might not have a problem with getting his shit taken, or getting his phone calls, or you know, getting extorted or whatever, right? So yeah, that's just how I think some people rationalize it. But I've definitely seen situations of dudes who so-called soft, right, or sitting on the dick, that they get crazy, right? And I think it's a misconception. It's a misconception that happens a lot. I never really felt like I had to prove myself. Like, at the end of the day, like, I always stood alone. Like, yeah, I joined the gang, but dudes was always trying to jump me. So like, me getting jumped is nothing new to me. You feel me? Like, I always been jumped since like elementary school. Like, dudes been trying to jump me. My teachers used to let me go early because dudes used to be trying to jump me in the classroom. Like, I wasn't scared of them. Like, I always fought. You feel me? So like, I think like that didn't really matter to me. Like I didn't need no inclusion. I wasn't looking for being for acceptance like some of these dudes. And like I say this all the time, yo, a lot of dudes are soft. A lot of dudes that join gangs, that join movements, a lot of dudes don't got that killer instinct themselves. A lot of dudes is not savages like they claim, right? Like, and I don't want to say that on some cool shit, but like a lot of dudes don't got that instinct in them. A lot of dudes, they just don't, because they fold when they by themselves. You see it all the time. Like if they're not in a group, or if they're not being embraced by a group, or like they don't feel like men, like they don't feel whole, they don't feel secure, they don't feel strong, they don't feel like, you see it all the time. So I already had my fair share of being jumped. I already knew, like, they've been trying to jump me since elementary school. You know what I'm saying? For dudes trying to start fights with me. And a lot of dudes can't fight. That's one. And a lot of dudes don't got the courage to even walk into a fight. A lot of dudes can't even take a hit, right? So this is just some of the things, right? And some of the things that you see. And this is why I never sit here and tell people, excuse me, I never sit here and tell people, like, yo, when you go in there, snuff somebody, or like, because you don't want to upset the wrong person. You don't know who's who, who's what, you know. And then the thing that happens is this: you go in the house, you snuff somebody. When you get into fights, your classification goes up. So if you're not really built like that, when your classification goes up, they're gonna put you in another house with people who might really be like that. So initially, when you go into the jail, you don't really have a high classification. You usually go to a low house, and then your shit works up if you keep getting into fights. So when people be giving people that advice, like, you're just going to snuff somebody, it's like, yo, you never know who you might be hitting. So now your classification goes up. You go into a house where people are already like that, because there's a whole bunch of other people here who be getting into fights too. And that might just change the dynamic of your whole bed, right? And depending if you snuffed a gang member, like, you just going to have issues, right? So I always tell people, like, find for themselves, man. Like, if you don't know how to fight, yo, learn how to fight. Like, you know, like, and if that don't even work, you can get you a weapon. Like, you just gotta do what you gotta do to preserve yourself, right? The key is self-preservation, right? And a lot of times, even when you get into those situations, or you get into them cliques in jail, like, you don't really know people. You don't know where these dudes is from. You don't know a hole in the wall. You don't know if they're really gonna hold you down. Like, I ain't gonna front. I was fortunate. I met like a dude. Well, I told y'all before, like, you know, I met a dude, and he was from Best Style, Brooklyn, and we got mad cool, like, you feel me, like, and he was just like, y'all, like, I bang for you, and you bang for me, like, and it was that, like. But a lot of times you don't really meet official people, right? Like, you don't really meet official people. So another thing they used to do is, like, you know, sometimes, like, they'll try to play games with the muffins, right, or the cereal. So again, this is part of the ranking thing, right? A lot of dudes in jail ain't got shit, to be honest. A lot of dudes ain't really getting nothing. A lot of dudes, they banking on extortion, they banking on the pantry, they banking on stuff that doesn't really mean nothing to a person who is getting support from the street, right? But then at the same time, people be like, oh, don't let nobody, like, for me, for example, I'm not fighting over no cereal. Like, I looked at that stuff like it was small, you feel me? Like, I didn't even really care about the cereal anyway. I wasn't gonna fight over no cereal. I wasn't gonna fight over certain things, right? Like, that was just my mindset. Some people might call me soft because of that, but I'm like, nah, because a lot of people don't understand. Like, you know, I have an understanding of who I am, and I know I have the beast within me, right? A lot of dudes don't got the beast within them. And one thing I realize is this, and I tell people this all the time: if you don't got the beast within you, then you need to go along with the program. I don't mean to sound like that, but it's like, when you go into certain environments, right, you have to be built differently to be able to stand on your own. And that's like some real shit. Like, you have to have like a good father figure, or a good male figure, and have a good sense of self, and strength, right, to be able to stand on your own. So I commend a lot of people who stand on their own, right? You have to, because I think especially when you go to some of these environments where people are testing you, or people are plotting, and people are trying to jump on you, right? You always have to have that mindset that, like, 9 times out of 10 somebody in the gang, not that it's always like that, but this is just the mindset I used to have. 9 times out of 10 somebody blood. That was just my mindset, right? 9 times out of 10 somebody blood. And if I get into something, I have to bang out. Like, I have to release savage mode. So a lot of times I was trying to change my life in this process, right? I became religious, you know, so I couldn't really do certain things how I would normally do them. But it took me a little while to get there, right? So, but for the most part, I was trying to avoid the beast because I knew once my mindset got into some savagery about, especially around, like, you know, once I started adapting to the shit that was going on around me, it was gonna get crazy, man. And I'm not saying that to toot my horn. You just realize at one point when you living like a savage and you doing certain shit in the streets and then you land in prison, you realize like, yo, I can't keep doing the same shit because then I'm gonna go home and nothing really changed. You need to be able to practice. Like a lot of people, they get into jail, they do the same shit, and then they think they're just gonna go home and change their life. That's not how that shit works. You need practice being a different man. You need practice being a different person. And a lot of people don't utilize the time in prison to practice. So a lot of times that's why they come home and fail, unfortunately. And I think that's one of the reasons of the recidivism being the way it is, right? Like aside from like the barriers and all those other things, I just think people do not practice being better and being a different person while they're in prison. See me, I never went back to prison. By the grace of God, I got off parole. I never had no violations. I never had no police contact during my whole time on parole. I never had a lot of issues that a lot of other people run into, by the grace of God, right? So my mindset changed. So yeah, so basically I was just trying to say in this video, man, like, it's not just a jail thing in society too, man. People try to play with you, or people try to say you soft because you don't respond a certain way to certain things, or because, you know, some dude might step on your shoes. You know, hypothetically, some dude might step on your shoes, and certain dudes might feel like you gotta punch a dude or you gotta do certain things. And a lot of times, I'm just here to tell you, you don't even gotta do those things, man. At the end of the day, if somebody is not threatening you, your life, your family, like with physical force or violence, like, don't get me wrong, sometimes words, you know, you got to be able to tell people, but even in word displays, like, you got to understand, man, like, you got to be smart. At the end of the day, it's about making it home. A lot of dudes, you might get into a verbal confrontation. Dudes is punks, like I said, they're carrying weapons, they're not really fighting, and then you end up in a situation. So you got to be smart over what things you're willing to get into things for. Is in jail's the same way. You get into a fight, dude might cut you because you beat him up. So I always had to think, I always had to be like, you know what, it's not even worth it. Like, as long as nobody taking nothing from me, or you trying to extort me, or you trying to take my phone calls, or you trying to do certain things, and I don't care what you say, bro. You can say I'm soft. You can say, oh, look at him, he's sitting over there. Just don't get in this vicinity trying to get crazy, and that's it. Like, it is what it is, you know. But yeah, so I just wanted to share this with y'all. Like, I know a lot of times people be under pressure. You know, we still going through these little situations from time to time, not just within jail, but also outside, right? Where we feel pressured as men, especially, right? We feel like we have to respond with violence for like any little thing, or misunderstandings or arguments and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to tell y'all, man, like, a lot of shit ain't worth it, man. Like, if it's not really endangering you, then you don't really gotta respond a certain way, because a lot of times you just setting yourself up for bigger situations and more harm to come from a situation. So let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, subscribe, share if y'all like the content. Y'all be safe out there. Peace.